Hello everybody, welcome to this webinar on Epigeum's Avoiding Plagiarism course. Thank you for your interest in this program, and I hope that you find it valuable. So there's three of us talking on the webinar. I'm not Brad, I'm the person in the middle. I'm David Lefevre. I'm a co-founder of Epigeum, and so I know a lot about Epigeum, and I'll be talking about the organisation and what it does, because it's a fairly unusual organisation. I'll then hand over to Brad, who will talk more specifically about the plagiarism course, how it can help you in the US, and then finally Sarah will join us, and Sarah will be giving a demonstration of the course, which is very crucial. I think the project will make sense once you see a demonstration. So this is the agenda. So a background to Epigeum, an overview of the course and how it can help you, a demonstration, then we'll show you some student feedback, because we've been running this program for a number of years and the student feedback is very positive. And at the end we'll take Q&A. So if you have any questions as you go along, please type into the box, and we'll try and feed the questions to whoever's talking, or we'll answer the questions at the end. So I hope you enjoy the webinar and find it useful to you in your context. So first of all, a little bit about Epigeum. Well, we started in the UK. We came out of a college called Imperial College, which is based in London. It's a science and technology university, pretty well regarded in the UK. It's normally third in the country. And we just got an upgrade because Epigeum was acquired by Oxford University Press, which is part of Oxford University. So it looks like Epigeum has been upgraded recently. So it's a non-profit. It's wholly owned by Oxford University, whose mission is to promote knowledge and do good for society. So that's the background to the organisation. We started the firm at Imperial College on the basis that universities could build higher quality e-learning if they worked together. So at the time I was running a Department of Educational Technology at Imperial College. We started building courses, discovered they were very expensive, and invited other institutions to work with us. And we built this model where a group of universities would come together, share the development cost, and co-develop the courses. And this is what we do. And we found that this leads to much higher quality courses and lower costs for everybody. Once the course is built, we then license to other institutions, which generates more money, which can be used to keep the courses updated. So that's the model. So it's a fairly unusual model. We've been doing this for 10 years. We're now the leading publisher of online courses, focusing on research, teaching and learning. So how to do research, how to teach, and study skills within higher education. And we offer 78 online courses across 12 programs. We came out of London, but we've been very international from the get-go. So from a very early stage, we're working with US institutions, with University of Michigan, with Penn State, with the SUNY system. We're working with Australian universities, and right from the beginning, we've been very global. And typically, a development group that we put together will contain institutions from a number of different countries. So we're not parochial. So why a course on avoiding plagiarism? Well, this course was I think it was our second course, and there's been steady interest in this topic over 10 years. Plagiarism remains a common problem in universities. The results of a student plagiarizing cause anguish for the student and the university. So it's very unpleasant to have to for universities to deal with cases of plagiarism, and it's probably even more unpleasant for the student. So, and what we feel is that there's lots of detection systems out there, Turnitin and the like, which detect plagiarism. But we felt that a training solution prior to that would work in tandem with the checking solution to address this issue. And what we're trying to do, if you look at the third bullet point here, is create positive message about the importance of academic integrity. So rather than just punishing students after the event, create positive message, explain what plagiarism is, how it often happens accidentally, and try and prevent plagiarism occurring in the first place. A method of doing that was to create the Avoiding Plagiarism course and its associated system. So I'll now hand over to Brad, who will talk in more detail about avoiding plagiarism, the context and the response, and his role in this project. So, Brad.
Thank you so much. My name is Brad Garner. I'm from Indiana Wesleyan University. I work in a place called the Center for Learning and Innovation, and I'm the Director of Faculty Enrichment. And we have been, as most universities are, struggling with this issue over the years, trying to find effective ways to inform students and also hold them accountable. So I'd like to begin with two thoughts today. The first of those is that we live in a copy and paste culture. Many of the students who we find in higher education today are part of that group that we often refer to as digital natives. And so if you think about their lifetime and their experiences, they have become very accustomed to simply copying and pasting information from one location to another. So that's just part of their life experience. The second thought is that forewarned is forearmed. We want students to be aware of the various ways in which plagiarism can be presented and equip them with skills to prevent themselves from engaging in that activity. I might also add to this particular old adage, forewarned is also accountable. So we want our students to be knowledgeable about plagiarism, but then also accountable for their own behaviors in complying with ways that avoid that practice and the things that they work on. And talk for a moment about the prevalence of plagiarism in higher education. A massive study that was done with 500,000 college students, 40% of them admitting that they'd done it, which is not surprising. Probably of greater concern, however, is the fact that a vast majority of them also said, I don't think this is very serious. So that once again I think points to both of these things, point to the need to educate students on the various practices that are under the large umbrella of plagiarism, and then secondly, to help them realize how serious this is and the possible consequences they may experience as a result of that. In this study, they identified a variety of what they would call plagiarism practices. The first of those being simply copying and pasting materials from one location to another. They also indicated that a lot of students engaged in what they called paraphrasing. So that's just simply taking a quote from a book or a journal article and restating it in my own words. A third practice was what they called summarizing, and that is just taking that quote, restating it, and expressing it. And then finally, what they call patch writing, and that is taking the original source and just expressing it in fewer words. Now, in fairness to our students, many of them coming to higher education may not have been attending high schools, for example, where plagiarism was an issue or where they were held accountable. So as they did their writing and research during their high school years and preparing to go into higher education, they may never have been made aware of the fact that plagiarism is a serious issue. So that's where this course, again, becomes a very critical component of a student's orientation to higher education. Just some additional data from the citation project. Interestingly, most of the quotes that students used in the papers that were reviewed came from the first 3 pages of either the journal article or the book. They were typically short, and it kind of leads you to believe that in many cases students are trying to reach a certain page limitation or page expectation, and they're finding quotes in the first few pages of these publications simply as filler. They may not have a whole lot to do with the content, but they add a few extra lines and get them closer to that 5-page paper they have to write. Also found that students were not citing sources correctly. So once again, this is a discipline that we want our students to gain so that when they're writing and when they're creating these products, they're using sources from the professional literature. But they're also, at the same time, aware that it is necessary and important for them to give full credit for the individual who had those original thoughts or created that original research. So as we think about some ways of responding to the whole issue of plagiarism in higher education, the first of those, I believe, is making sure that faculty are aware of the various kinds of plagiarism that can occur in the 21st century. Once again, I think as we have moved into a digital age, the level at which plagiarism can occur and the ease with which it can occur has greatly increased. So faculty need to be aware of the fact that this is a concern and an issue and one that they need to attend to in their work with students. And I think part of that awareness process is also encouraging faculty to be vigilant. As faculty read student papers and student research projects, they should be on the lookout for plagiarism. They need to be vigilant. They need to be consistent. And so that students are aware that when they submit a paper to a professor, it will undergo scrutiny in relation to possible plagiarism. The second issue is that campuses must define clearly in their handbooks and in their policies their expectations and the consequences of plagiarism. It's quite common, for example, for universities to have a 3-strike rule in terms of the first offense during your college career resulting in a failing grade on the paper in which plagiarism occurred. The second offense typically results in failure in the course in which that occurred. And quite often, colleges and universities have a practice or policy that says if you have that 3rd strike, if you do it a 3rd time, you will be dismissed. So students need to be aware of those costs and the possible consequences for plagiarism. Thirdly, and this course ties in so nicely to this, is the idea of educating students on the issue. One of the things I like most about this course is how concise it is and how chock full of details and experiences and activities for students to take advantage of, so that students coming out of this course will be fully aware of all the parameters of plagiarism and how it might creep into the work that they do. And then finally, I think it's important for faculty to take advantage of the available detection tools. David mentioned earlier Turnitin, and there are a number of other of those on the market that actually do the work for us in many ways and compare that student's work to the body of information that's found on the internet, also compares it to other papers that have been previously submitted by students. So again, that gives us a clear advantage, and we can use this digital age to our advantage to help us detect these instances of plagiarism. And then finally, I'd like to comment just for a moment on the next slide about some of the important features of this course. As I mentioned earlier, the course is done very concisely. So in 60 minutes, students can gather a full awareness of plagiarism, have some opportunities to engage with that, and begin to think about their own practices in terms of how they write or how they do research. There are some great examples and ways in which students can avoid plagiarism, gives them some tools to do their own check on their own work. The experiences and the activities in the course are interactive in nature, so it's not simply students reading about plagiarism or listening to somebody talk about plagiarism. They're actually engaging with it. So that life experience will then hopefully carry over into their own work as they think about the kind of writing they're doing and the kind of research they're doing. Also some assessments that are very helpful. So this course, for example, could be included as a resource for students during their first semester on campus or during the initial gateway course that they take in their academic discipline, so that everyone has an opportunity to engage with this course, and we can be assured that everyone is fully aware of the parameters of plagiarism and the consequences that exist on our campus. So I'm very excited to see this course continue, and I think it will have a tremendous impact on the careers and experiences of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. So I'm going to move on to more technical matters now, more practical technical matters. So what is the Avoiding Plagiarism course system? Well, It's two things. First of all, as Brad indicated, Avoiding Plagiarism is a concise but comprehensive course on how to avoid plagiarism and how to correctly use citations and references. The second part to the system is the course can be used in conjunction with its accompanying online learning system, or it can be put in your own institution's VLE or LMS. And the course will give you assurance, we believe, that all your students have been adequately prepared for their assignments. A secondary point is that in a world of increasing negligence claims, use of this system can really minimise the risk of your exposure to such claims. So to talk about this in more detail, so option one is to use our online system and get started straight away. So this is the quickest way to get up and running with the system. So you subscribe to the system, and then if you look at the first picture here, top left, you simply direct students to the Avoiding Plagiarism website, ask them to complete the course. Students can register using their university email. They study the course. And then finally, they can either bring their certificates to class or email them to you, or you can log in and look at the admin view and see who's completed what. So that's the option one, very simple and easy. Option two is to implement the course in your LMS. And the advantage here is you can integrate it more tightly into your existing online provision. And the way this works, if you look at the first picture, we send you the files and we help you install them in your VLE or LMS. So we've done this a lot. So we've got over 200 institutions using our courses, and most of them use their own LMS. So we're very familiar with Blackboard, Moodle, Campus, Desire to Learn, etc. And we can help you do this. We can also show you how to edit or adapt the courses if you want to tailor them more closely to your institution. For example, adding links to your institution's resources, etc. Look at picture two. Students then log into your LMS, study the course, and you can then log into the system to see who's completed and who has not. So two different ways to use the system, and it's your choice. Okay, what does the course itself look like? Well, I think Brad indicated some of this. It's very interactive, full of video, interactive exercises, practice exercises, etc., which has all been refined over a period of time in response to student feedback. I think the best way to show you the content and features is just to give you a demonstration. And I'll now pass on to my colleague Sarah, who will do that.
Thanks, David. Okay, so now I just want to give a brief demonstration of the Avoiding Plagiarism course. So this course contains 4 units, and these include what is plagiarism, plagiarism in context, referencing, and avoiding plagiarism tips and tales. So you can see this is in our hosted solution, and this is how the program will look if you opt for that option. Most universities, as David said, however, choose to host it in their own learning management system. So I'll start here with the welcome screen. This is a feature that all of our courses have. You can see the authors here, the learning outcomes, the course structure, and also some of the highlights to look out for as well. So now to give you an idea of some of the program's features, let's start by looking at the screen entitled Types of Plagiarism. So at the top of every screen, we have a learning outcome which indicates what is going to be covered in the screen and what participants should have learned or should be able to do after completing that screen. We also offer an estimated duration for each screen. Here it's 4 minutes, so that students have an idea of how long it is likely to take to work through the screen. These estimates include time to watch videos and complete activities in the central section. Screens vary in length throughout the program. On the right-hand side of many of the course screens, there are little clickable boxes, or as we refer to them, pods, containing extra information about the main screen content, as well as optional activities, documents to download, and definitions of key terms. Here we have a useful links pod. The recommended websites, blogs, or articles complement the on-screen content and provide participants with more in-depth information. In other screens, there are plagiarism in the news pods, which specifically link to interesting and pertinent articles. We also have a useful advice pod as well. And above here is the Your Context pod. So this is particularly important. These pods encourage participants to find out more about their own context. For example, the expectations or guidelines at their own institution or the support available within their own department. These are customizable, which means that the institutions can insert their own information into the pods. For this reason, we keep our content fairly generic. For instance, in this pod, institutions may want to insert links to their own website or handbook. So you will notice that many of the screens also have the Do This icon on the right-hand side. This appears when we want to highlight points of particular importance. Now to turn to some of the more specific course features. At the beginning of Unit 1, you will see examples of our high-quality video footage. These videos are interviews with students, providing different viewpoints, anecdotes, and useful tips. These clips prompt participants to think about their own experiences and perceptions of plagiarism, and to realize that they are not alone, that their peers experience the same concerns.
I think plagiarism is wrongfully taking someone else's work and making like it's your own. Like if someone were to do all of the research and all of the pieces of the process necessary to get a certain thing, then you've just completely overridden all of their work and said,
All videos have transcripts for accessibility purposes. You can find them here by clicking on Show Transcript. It is worth mentioning at this point that all of our interactive screens have an accessible counterpart containing flat texts. You can find this button at the top of every screen saying text or print version. These printable versions are compatible with screen readers and useful for those who are unable to use the interactive versions for any reason. So activities in the program fall into two categories, interactive and presentational. Presentational activities are used to present key subject matter in an engaging and attractive way rather than simply as flat text. On this screen there is a comic strip, for example, which portrays a student who accidentally plagiarizes by copying and pasting a chunk of interesting text from an online article into his notes. Interactive activities, on the other hand, require the participant to do something, whether this be entering text in response to a question, selecting answers based on a scenario, matching items or putting items in order, and so on. Further down this screen, there is a decision-style tree activity, which requires the participant to select answers based on questions that they should consider when guarding against avoiding an unintentional plagiarism. So another screen worth mentioning is the screen entitled Citations and References in Unit 3. Having been introduced to the concept of referencing and to a range of different referencing systems, participants can learn about the difference between MLA and APA styles in greater depth. In the interactive activity in the middle of the screen, participants are asked to consider samples of text and bibliographic information and to draft a correct citation before clicking for the answer. Following this, at the bottom of the screen, there is an activity which highlights the key features of APA-style references. We hope that presenting course content via different activities, we can help to keep the material fresh, digestible, and fun. Before moving on to the content at the end of the course, it is worth pointing out the exciting Plagiarism in the News screen. Although links and articles are scattered throughout the course, this screen collates interesting news stories into one place in an engaging mock newspaper format. Hopefully this will prove to students that the course topic is incredibly relevant in the real world. Finally, I will talk about the quizzes and available assessment options. At the end of each unit, there is a review quiz to help consolidate any new knowledge. For example, at the end of Module 2, This interactive book activity asks participants to compare an original passage of text to a revised version on the left. They then have to decide whether they think the revised version represents plagiarism or not. At the end of each course, participants are given another opportunity to consolidate their new skills by completing an interactive series of questions based on a scenario. In this course, participants follow Kim, a sophomore political science major, as she works on her latest assignment. This practice scenario is followed by a course summary, a resource bank, and a references screen. And useful links mentioned throughout the course have been collated into a resource bank, and all citations in the main text have been compiled in the references screen. We hope that participants take the opportunity to explore the topics in more detail. The last screen is the course quiz. These multiple choice quizzes are the default assessment mode, testing both completion of the course and understanding. They are provided in a format that will allow institutions to add and remove questions after the courses have been installed in their LMS. So I hope I've given you a good taste of the program content and some of the pedagogical features with this demonstration. If you have any questions, please do note them down now in the right-hand GoToWebinar panel, or feel free to contact FGM after the webinar. I'll now pass back on to David.
Okay, so Brad, please feel free to jump in on this at any point, but I'll continue. So who is this course for? Well, the course is designed for undergraduate and taught postgraduate students. So PhD students can use this course, doctoral students can use this course, but they might need additional information. So it's really focused on taught students, undergraduates and taught MScs and MAs. The course is suited to all discipline areas. So we've been aware of the discipline issue throughout. We hope we've given enough examples from different areas, from computing, from social sciences, natural sciences, to make sure that all students will benefit from this. And finally, very importantly, the course is accessible to both home and international students. And maybe what we really mean there is native and non-native speakers of English. So we've made sure that the language is kept simple and clear, and so that non-native speakers of English can also use the course effectively. Okay, so feedback from students. So when students take the course in our system, they complete a feedback form. And what we found is that 96% of students state the course to be effective in improving their understanding of how to avoid plagiarism. So that's really the key statistic. If your students study this course, then you can be pretty certain that their understanding of plagiarism will improve to an effective degree. And secondly, 85% of the students state the quality of the course to be either high or very high. So the students believe that it's an effective way of learning for them, and that the quality of the course is high. More interesting for us is when you look through the comments, because you begin to get a feel of how the course is really helping students. So the first one's a very common response, very generic. They found it quality is high and useful. The second point here is that I found the course extremely helpful as I was struggling before, and I'm sure I'll no longer be so anxious about turning in essay. So we like that quote because it shows that students are actually anxious about this because the penalties are so significant. The third one is another common comment, which is that they felt the course really clarified what plagiarism was, and that it hadn't really been adequately explained before. So what we found is that many institutions are explaining either in short sessions during induction week, or through emails, or through online web pages. And the response from the students on this course is that this structured course is a more effective way to study about plagiarism. And the third one, again, is just expressing the point that students have difficulty with this. It's a point of concern for them, and that using this course can really help alleviate that. So there we are. So that's the course. It's used by many institutions. It helps students. Quality is high. Brad's spoken about the issue in much more detail than me, and I'm sure much of that resonated with yourselves. We'll now take a look at any questions we have. Also, just a comment on the technical format of the courses. So the courses are built in HTML5, which means that they're compatible with mobile devices, most web browsers and VLEs, etc. So we didn't really talk about that, but they're built in HTML5. Okay, so I think hopefully we've covered all your questions. The final statement here is hopefully you're interested in the system, and if you want to learn more about how much it costs to subscribe to the course or get a trial and see the course for yourself, then please contact Fran. Oh, so we've got one more question come in. Yeah, hopefully, how can you use it? The next step is contact Fran. She'll set you up with a username and password so that you can log in and take a look at the course for yourself, find out how much it costs, answer any questions about how to get up and using the system, which we hope is very straightforward. I hope you found it useful. Brad, I don't know if you have anything to add in closing on the webinar?
No, just that I would encourage folks to really consider this resource as a way of helping their students.
Okay, so I think we're done. So thank you very much. I hope it's useful, and please contact Fran. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.